Okay, so the spark within, I really feel like for my journey, the spark was coming up for several years prior to bursting into a bonfire. And it was, I was not happy in my life. I wasn't where I wanted to be in my career. I was trying to get pregnant and it wasn't happening. And uh, I was really starting to do a lot of destructive things to myself, a lot of drinking. I was actually having an affair, and I think that that spark was these moments where I would just be absolutely like, what am I doing with my life? Who am I? And I was so terrified to come forward and just say something, say I'm scared, say I'm doing this, I don't know how to stop, to family, to friends, to anybody, literally to anybody. And so I would have these moments in the shower where I was just bawling my eyes out. And if I think about it, I feel like those were moments of the spark starting, because for 4 years before my life totally went up in flame, I wanted to ask for help. I really I wanted to talk to somebody and just say, am I crazy? Like, what's going on? I don't understand why I'm trashing myself so much. Um, but I was so terrified of being judged and being abandoned that I just kept it back. But if I think about it, that spark was there for a good 4 years before everything really went up in flame. I love this question of how did I start to honor my spark? Because for me, at least, I felt like the spark pretty much like took over everything. And maybe the way that I honored it was to just realize I was on my knees and there was nothing I could do. For me, it really began with my first husband saying to me on Thanksgiving Day, "I don't think I love you anymore. I don't think I want to be married to you anymore. By the way, I don't think I want to be a father. And I'm in love with another woman." I mean, it was pretty much like all the things, right? Like all the things at once. And I it really, therapy is a wonderful thing. And the good news is that this was something that came out of the spark, was honoring getting help and asking for help. And it helped me to see, like I was talking about, that this spark had been in me for 4 years. But in the moment, it was a terrible shock and terrifying for me, because at the time I was 37, was, oh my gosh, will I have a family? Because I waited. And so being married to someone for 15 years and thinking you're on the same page around family, which for me has been like such an important thing, it was just holy moly. So there was just this immense amount of shock that the fire brought, just like an earthquake, really, that just kind of swallowed me. And the day after, on Black Friday, this was in 2012, I had a voice that came up in my head and it said, "You need meditation." And I listened. My marriage didn't last much longer. I mean, you can probably imagine, it was very clear, okay, wow, this is happening. I remember I decided I was going to go to my first yoga class, been in weeks. And I was like, today I'm going to buy a book on meditation, because that voice said, I need to, learn how to meditate. And I'm looking at the shelf in the library at my yoga studio, and I just pull the first book and I pull it out and I start reading it, and like every word is popping off the page, except it's a book about Buddhism. And I was like, wait, I thought I was looking for meditation. Turns out I was looking for Buddhism. And so, you know, when everything fell apart, I realized, wow, I really lost faith. And so in me seeking meditation, it was actually taking me on a journey back to faith, back to some sort of sacred connection in my life that had been completely lost, which is probably why I was spinning my wheels for 4 years and really didn't have the tools to listen to the spark when it was speaking. So the journey around Buddhism took me trying different types of meditation, and they were all lovely, but it wasn't like this is it, you know? And I went to this healing circle at the Shambhala Center in Manhattan. So that's the Tibetan form of Buddhism. And I had done an intro to meditation, and I really liked the center. And I thought, maybe this is it. And I went to this support group, and I'd never been to a support group in my life, ever, ever, ever. So I'm like, it's March now of 2013, you know, I'm in mediation, everything's falling apart. I've got my apartment on the market, like I'm a mess. And they're passing the mic around, you know, everybody's saying their name. And I'm like, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God. So when the mic comes to me, I decided to do something I've never done publicly, which was to be completely honest and vulnerable. So I just said, you know, my name is Nicole, and here's what's happening. And I just poured my heart out, and I told them everything. And a miracle happened in that moment, because I realized that after doing this, people came close. And not just that each person after me, it was as if they had permission to do the same. And I remember I went up to the teacher afterwards. He looked at me and he said, that was really courageous. I was like, oh, is that what courage is? And there was just such a moment of, oh my gosh, I've been wrong. You know, my background was as a musical theater performer. I had a 20-year career performing on stages all over. I was a New York City Rockette. I was in commercials, all of these things. And I really believed, not just as a performer, but in my life, that I had to guard myself, you know, that I had to always look like I had it all together. Reason being, if I showed them I didn't have it all together, I would be rejected. And yet it created this beautiful, courageous space. Probably, as you would say, a little fire then was ignited in each person. So it was really like the beginning, that moment in the healing circle was really the seed for the work I do now as a coach, teaching people powerful presence, because it was such a moment of me going, wow, I really have been wrong about what creates connection, you know? And so that fire is something that's in all of us. And I think that depending on where you are and what you've experienced, you know, disappointments, traumas, things like that, then it can be very small, you know, and someone can think it's out. Someone can literally think it's out. I don't believe that. I believe everybody, even if it's the tiniest flame, it's in there. But it needs encouragement. You know, it needs oxygen, right? To grow. And so that moment made me realize, oh my gosh, this is actually the nourishment and affirmation that makes a difference.
I think the first time I really felt the divine feminine spark was it's kind of funny. I was called to claim myself as an artist. You know, I had been kind of dancing around it a little bit, and it was just this moment of like really owning that I'm an artist, and I'm gonna really go for it. And you know, and really listening to spirit as to what the next steps were on that path. And I heard really clearly, which was so baffling to me and my family and my friends, was to learn about birth, And I think the way the divine works sometimes, those callings, it's like sometimes it's not that like lightning strike, but it's that, you know, those little nudges, those little clues that open up along the way. So for me, it was you know, this little nudge, like check out birth, see what's there for you. And at the time, I had been you know, studying shamanism and meeting spirit guides and connecting to the natural world through that filter. And we were talking about birth and the importance of birth and creativity. And so I started to study birth, and I went to my first birth doula training, and I felt like I was at home. And I didn't really know why until I started to explore my own birth story and just saw like how the template of my own birth was really showing up everywhere. And so I just kept continuing to follow that thread in the birth world. And it's all about creative power, right? And, you know, it was, and that was my lightning strike moment where I was sitting in this class and I was like, oh my goodness, this is my work. I need to, like, it was like, whew, I need to go directly to this source for myself first. I need to reclaim and heal all of the places where I have given away my creative power, where it has been taken, where it has been leaked. Like this is what's happening on the planet right now. And I it was like, oh, I think I can do this through birth. I think that this is an amazing doorway to support other women in their creative process. And so as a birth doula for about a decade, supported 300 souls coming earthside. And through that work, I really was learning and sitting at the feet of the Great Mother, you know, like sitting at the feet of the Divine Feminine, watching women embody the goddess, you know, and seeing what it was like to open and surrender to that power and what would happen when she would close off to it. How can I support these women in having a completely empowered birth experience to hone in the vision, work with the divine feminine so that this is a vision quest experience for themselves? That was the foundation. And then what started happening is I started to apply what I was learning in birth to my own artwork. At that point, I wouldn't necessarily say I was blocked, but I didn't have a lot of endurance as an artist. You know, I was originally a writer. I got a degree in writing, and I wrote poetry. I loved it, and it was, you know, connecting. I was connecting to spirit. William Blake rocked my world. Huge spiritual opening through studying him in college, and you know, like these incredible writers. So that was my art form. I, you know, I did start painting around the time, actually, like my big kind of painting breakthrough happened on 9/11. And it was just this interesting spark, this impulse to go to the art supply store. And I gathered all of these paints. I'm kind of backtracking a little bit, but I gathered all of these paints and I spent the day painting. And this painting, it probably would look like a bunch of squiggles and a mess to you, but it opened something up. I came alive, you know. So that was this beginning of creativity. But my art or painting, but my paintings, I would make them very quick. You know, they were great. They were full of power, very raw. So my art up until that point as a doula was like kind of down and dirty, quick, like healing poems, sketches, you know, just the energy moving through me. And then by the time I was at this point where I'm like, I'm claiming myself as an artist, the paintings and spirit, they were requiring more of me. There were more elements to the paintings. I was being asked to do commissions. And there was this one commission in particular where the vision was really complicated. And it was huge. It was like my biggest commission. And it was a personal tonga. So it was like this power piece that I was creating for a friend of mine that was so large. And, you know, there'd be times where I was painting this piece and I noticed I was saying the same thing to myself that I heard birthing women say. Like, you know, I started to listen to my internal dialogue saying things like, I don't know if I can do this. When is this going to be over? You know, just kind of really getting a little bit down in the dumps about this process. And what was so cool was my inner doula kicked in and was like, you've got this, you're doing this, this is temporary. And there's this new relationship started to open up between these two parts and myself. And I I started to really understand what it meant to really be called forward as a greater creative channel. That there was this fire, there's this, there was different things required that I would see was also required for the women that I was supporting in birth. And a huge one was that endurance, that connection to the vision, to recommit and keep recommitting, that there's this next level of devotion that I was dialing in for spirit. Yes, it was a commission for this woman, but this was between me and God. There'd be moments like, I don't know if I'm ever going to finish it. And then I did. And I met myself in this new way where I was like, oh my gosh, I'm different. I'm a different person than who I thought I was. I have way more power. I have way more endurance. What else can I create? What else can I do? If I have these pieces in place, and I think it's just, you keep developing it, you keep developing that endurance, that vision, gathering the support people. Like, what is possible if I keep growing that?
So I think it really took me till 2020 to recognize that my spark from within was coming from source, coming from the divine, and incredible drive and this incredible divine spark of passion my whole life. As a teenager, I was writing and creating and connecting with nature. And when I started doing my spiritual work, really my calling started in 2005. And when that happened, I just had this internal drive to start working with people and to start using my gifts as a psychic medium to work with others. And even then, I knew that voice was coming from someplace else, but it was not a conscious understanding. It was more of, okay, I'm going to go do this thing. And I was still very focused on what I was doing versus where it was coming from. And so really for the last 15 years, I've worked with my clients and done all of these different projects and creative endeavors and community building, and all of the work that I've done has just really come from this internal push. And so it's really now, looking back at the last 15 years, that I recognize that it was really source leading the way that entire time, asking me to step into who I am, asking me to, deliver on my soul purpose, asking me to be on mission, asking me to get healthy physically, mentally, spiritually. That's what 2020 was all about, the hindsight of, oh, this is really coming from a higher place than just my own self or my own ego or something like that. So it's really now that I'm recognizing that that's where my divine spark has really come from.
My first memory is from infancy, where I just remember seeing combinations of light and shade and no particular shapes until this infant's hand floated in the air into my line of vision. And the feeling was like, wait a minute, I recognize that. And all of a sudden the awareness just washed through me like, oh my God, that's a hand. I'm back. We did it. I have a body. And the moment my awareness connected with the hand, there was this flood of sensation. Like I could feel suddenly the activation of the body, and I could start to feel movement in my body and the pulsating of energy and the tissues and the actual physicality, the presence of it. And what I remember from that, the feeling, because I didn't have cognitive ability as an infant, but the knowing was completely there. And the feeling I had was yes, we did it. I know exactly what we need to do. Like, I know exactly what to do this time. and then just infancy closed back over me. So that, I'd have to say, is a pretty strong divine spark, you know, just to, for whatever reason it happened that way, to have that very very aware activation so young in life really started me on a deliberate course in this lifetime. Not deliberate from the head, but deliberate from the soul and beyond. When I was about 3 years old, my family lived in South Wisconsin. I remember standing at the far end of our driveway next to my friend, the willow tree. And we were watching my parents fighting. And it was funny, like the feeling that was there was just watching the big people fight and being very confused. Why? Like I could feel in their hearts that they just wanted to be loved. But there they are fighting and slamming doors, and it was really weird. So this was the second very conscious memory that I have, where standing there holding hands with my friend, the willow tree. I mean, the willow tree knew it didn't have to be that way. I knew it didn't have to be that way. But somehow the big people didn't understand it didn't have to be that way. So like all of me dropped in, and it was an experience of absolute clarity with a 3-year-old psyche. The clarity I had was, you know what, you guys? There's a different way, and I'm going to show you. So my family was not terribly receptive of their daughter having unique gifts and uncommon awareness. You know, I was doing energetic work and healing work on anyone who would sit still by the time I was 4. But it looked funny. And so it was discouraged. So when I did connect with the trees, my friends, the grasses, the insects, the clover flowers were amazing. They just radiated light and sound, to where I as a little one, I would go lie face down in the grass and just with, you know, on their level and looking at the flowers and the grass and the insects all interacting, and I would just listen to the music. It was obvious to me that we were all related. It was obvious to me that they could see me, that their life could see my life, and that they knew I could see them. And it was a feeling. There wasn't a cognition of terminology like, oh, this is my divine essence, you know. That part wasn't there. It was so integrated and so obvious, more obvious than the words humans wanted me to think are important, you know, and the habits and the decisions. So it was a very innate, complete knowing that the life that's within me is the same as the life that's within them, right? When I was in my 30s, I, for a time, had a job managing a small animal rescue facility. And one of the people that came to just spend time with the horses, learn how to ride, she was an acupuncturist and a healer. And we spent a little time together and did some work together. And however the conversation unfolded, one day she was asking me about communicating with the animals. And I'm like, nobody had ever really asked me much about it before. But she knew how to ask good questions. So she said to me, she said, well, Carrie, I can see you. I see what you do. I'm like, what are you talking about? Nobody sees what I do. And she said, yeah, you're a healer, Carrie. You're just used to healing with your being. And those words for me were like, wow, You're absolutely right. Because I had no facilitation and no real guidance to put words to what I have created and how I function in the world, I learned how to just to be aware of presence, how to feel disharmony and bring harmony to it, just simply through awareness, love, and presence. Those of us who are awakening to that spark and who are choosing it, and it, big steps, baby steps, it doesn't matter. It's a relationship within myself to say yes to it. Those of us that are walking and living with that awareness, of course we're going to go through all these difficult things. The point is not that we're being punished or we have to learn lessons. The point is we're being shown patterns that no longer work for us. And it would not be presenting if it were not trying to leave. The pattern I would not be aware of the pattern if I wasn't on my way out of the pattern, right? If people are not trying to heal, then the pattern's just the way it is. And they still do make excuses, and not in a negative sense, but just to survive it, right? So once we become aware of these patterns and we feel the anguish of it and go, oh my God, why is this happening? That's a beautiful sign. You're on your way past it. So the guidance that has helped me the most on my journey is when I see these patterns, rather than try and appease myself, comfort myself, to turn and look right at them, look right at it and say, okay, I can see this pattern now. I can see it. Thank you. I don't know what to do differently, but I can see it. Thank you. Thank you. A genuine thank you, genuine gratitude that the spark generated enough light for me to see what no longer works. In that light, then I can start to look around and say, what else is here for me? What else is being shown to me? I can see that pattern. No, thank you.
I think I had a eureka moment with this. It just kind of snuck up on me my whole life long. I've always, been religious and prayed a lot, but I never thought of having the spark within. But over the years, I have read books about, having us all, each of us has a little spark of God within us. And, connecting more with that. And when I did go to massage school, one of the teachers who was teaching us a method that nurses had used said that when she started incorporating energy work into her regular massage work, it became much more effective and more spiritual and better, because when you give someone a massage, even without energy work, it is spiritual because your energy field is connecting with their energy field. I moved to the country and there was a beautiful place that we worked at. It was a giant greenhouse and it had plants and flowers everywhere, and it had little rooms with hot tubs and other rooms with massage tables in it, and it was all open to each other, sort of. And it was just like a little community of energy work. And one of the girls, we became very good friends, all the people who worked there. And one of the girls went to a health fair at one of the local churches. And she started raving about this thing she discovered called Reiki, which none of us had ever heard of before. And she said she felt so good whenever she was finished with her sample Reiki session that she signed us all up for lessons. And we went, okay, what? We'll just go learn this new thing. Kind of reminded me of the Native American sessions that we had with this woman who was a pipe carrier, because it kind of made you into a capacitor for universal energy, which is Reiki is Japanese for universal energy. And it makes you a capacitor, and you just gather up energy and give it to the person, and the person and their body and God and their higher self, or whatever you want to call it, takes that energy and does whatever is necessary for that person, because you don't know what that person's path is and what they're supposed to be going through. So it's not up to you to change it. It's just up to you to give them comfort and try to be of help to them. So that's why I just loved Reiki.
Really big struggle that I had and has absolutely led me to creating a community of artists and healers and, people who are accessing spirit through art. So if we're backtracking a little bit, when I was 21, I moved away from home and moved to a new city. And the initiation of that, the activation of that, opened up this massive spiritual opening, massive, where, and I hear this from a lot of people in the community that I'm in. It was so big. I didn't know what to do with it. I was seeing spirits, I was hearing things, but it was blissful too. There was this like bliss. I knew I was safe. I knew this was a good thing. And as much as my family and friends loved me, they had no idea what was happening to me. And they felt I was very activated. So it's probably, that little manic experience, right? Of this big opening that I had no idea how to ground. I was so scared. I didn't know where to go. Was I going crazy? Everyone was responding to me like I was going crazy. So what I did, because I didn't have anyone to talk to about it, and when I would get it reflected back that I was nuts, I hid it away. And I started dating a really mainstream dude, sweet guy, not in alignment, and try to be normal. I just want to be normal. I don't know what that was. A lot of it too was activated from William Blake and reading these poets. My mind was being blown, but I tucked it away. I hid it away. I moved to a suburb. I was so young, like at 22, was going to get married to this guy, and slowly started to get so depressed. Person could not support me in this. And we actually broke up very soon after, and I moved back into the city where that big spiritual opening started again, and I didn't know what to do. So I went to a therapist, and I was like, this thing is happening. Very mainstream therapist. There's something wrong with you. We're going to put you on medication. Okay, that sounds right. I don't know, and I was also depressed because I didn't know what was happening. I didn't have anyone to talk about it with. Yes, please give me a pill that makes me normal. So I took antidepressants for a little while. And this is for, everyone has their own path. I'm very grateful to them for the time that I was on them, because it did help me stabilize emotionally. And everyone is where they are with that. I'm a big advocate of getting the support that you need. My story was, it became the thing where they started medicating the medication. It wasn't what I needed. And I was walking along the street this one day, and I never do this kind of thing, but there was this psychic, and I was like, I'm just going to go in. And I went in, and she looked at me, and she asked me if I was on medication. And I was like, yeah. She's like, you need to come off of it. Your third eye is closing. And I was like, what? It was just this gift, really. And I had started dating my now husband at that time. And I saw him later that night, and I was talking to him about everything. And he said to me, what would it be like to just accept who you are? To see these sensitivities, to see these abilities as a gift.
What happened was, it didn't end up being Tibetan, actually. I ended up doing a intro to Zen training weekend up at Zen Mountain Monastery. And when I found that practice, which it's called Zazen, it was just a full body yes. Like, this is it. This is my practice. And I was able to join a Sangha. They have a sister temple in Brooklyn. And that practice ended up being the foundation to really help me get through 2013, because the divorce was only the beginning. Like, when I said it was a bonfire, it began with a divorce. Then I was robbed. I was in 2 car accidents, and I lost a dear friend to a heart attack. So what happened was I was in a loop. A Vedic astrologer told me later that it was my eclipse year. But when you think about a bonfire, it seemed like it just kept getting fed. And in Zen, they talk a lot about the ego burning to ash. And this was something that I really felt was happening for me. And I'm also getting these teachings around impermanence, which were very helpful. They were helpful because I thought, okay, if things are not permanent, then my situation can change. I can change from the woman I was before. And also, holy moly, all this stuff I'm dealing with is going to change as well. But what really helped around fire, a big turning point for fire in that year for me then, was, I think it was after I was robbed. So I've been through the divorce. I got robbed. It was awful. And I was talking to a dear friend, and I said, I just feel like I'm burning to ash again and again and again. And she said, you're a phoenix. 2013 was a year of obstacles for sure. But what I realized was that in each obstacle, who I needed and what I needed to make my way through was there. So, they always say that when the student is ready, the teacher appears. And so I really came into 2013 saying, I'm ready to be a student. Fighting it all those years before. Now I'm really ready to be a student of myself, of life. And in come these Zen teachers, in comes this support group. There was just, again and again, even I think about when I was robbed, it was someone broke into my car, and I was moving from my apartment, which was being sold, to go stay in a friend's for a month. And all my very intimate things, bank statements, a lot of clothes, shoes, my entire altar, all the things that I had making up my altar were in the back seat and all taken. And it was, oh my goodness. Wow. And in that moment where I had a mental break, for sure. That was really, I just couldn't believe it. I was like, how can it get worse? And this was only halfway through the year. So hadn't had the car accidents yet. Hadn't lost a friend to the heart attack. But what did come at that time was my family was there. And the insurance company actually ended up fully reimbursing me. So it was kind of one of those moments where something horrible is happening, but I'm being taken care of. I think about the car accidents, and I was in 2 car accidents in one day, if you can imagine. I really thought I was going to die that day. I didn't die. I ended up getting full reimbursement for my car, which gave me savings at a time that was so crucial. Here I was financially independent for the first time in my life, at the age of 38, going, oh my gosh. And because of that happening with the car, I then had savings that were helping me then to build things for myself the following year. So I think this was the fire working in me. I think this was me really coming back to finding a spiritual path and being connected again, that allowed me in those moments to create new associations and to recognize everything's falling apart and I'm being supported. wow. And for me, that was so radical because, like I said, for 37 years, I thought if I came forward with any of these messes, I'd be rejected. So it was just being strengthened. This new belief was being strengthened. It was like the universe was like, no, no, now you've got it. And we're just going to keep showing you. We're going to keep showing you until you believe this now moving forward, so that then it can become about discernment of who the right support is. So to give the happy ending to all of this, I came into 2014 and I had survived this horrible year. And I really felt like it was like coming out after a storm, like looking up at the sky and seeing like a clearing.
One of the biggest obstacles that I assumed I needed to be taught. I assumed other people knew something that I don't about me. So, like a good human, I was taught that I require education. So I set out to try to discover education. And it was so difficult because each time I would engage, I would open up and think, well, do I want to go to acupuncture school? Do I want to study a healing modality, chiropractic? Because these are all viable, these are all recognizable. And healing with your being, how are you going to make a living out of that, right? That's in the programming that I grew up with. The messages I received is you're going to fail. You're never going to succeed by being yourself. You should be an engineer. And engineering was not for me. And the self-judgment came right back. What's wrong with me that I can't do it their way? What's wrong with me that I can't conform to this amazing healing modality that's supposed to be the penultimate in helping others? So what's wrong with me has been one of the major obstacles in my life. And it's very, very grateful that it's not a very powerful phrase in my world anymore. Every once in a while it tries to creep in and I'm like, oh, my old friend, hello, yes, would you like some tea? And here's the door, The biggest obstacles have been those phrases that, were suggested to me as a young person, that I should keep around all the time. What's wrong with me? What did I do wrong? And how am I missing something here? And, oh, I probably shouldn't. And who do you think you are? And nobody's going to understand that. Nothing you do matters. Okay. All of those phrases are what created the very, very difficult unfoldments in my life, like a marriage that was abusive in every direction except physical. But all of those phrases and organizing myself in that way is what led me into a relationship that ended with me calling the police for help walking away. When that happened, that for me was an amazing awakening to where I realized I am never doing this again. I don't care how long it takes for me to be aware enough. I don't care what it takes, what I have to look at, what I have to go through. But I am never creating a relationship like that again. About 6 months after walking away from the marriage, I was really looking for help. I had this really desperate feeling that I know I can't be the only one who feels like this on the planet, who knows things that other people don't seem to know, which confused me. Why would I know things other people don't know? yet it keeps happening. And I'm tired of deciding there's something wrong with me. But that's all I know. How do I know something different about myself? I need help. Because of my experiences earlier, I knew I wasn't looking for a teacher per se. How do we do this side by side so that nobody's above me and nobody's below me, but we all have amazing divine information and divine presence to share, to complement each other. So about 6 months after the marriage, I hopped on a teleconference with a woman who started talking about horses and her experience with horses that was so similar to mine. And I had never heard anybody talk about it before. So I emailed her and contacted her. And in the course of our conversations was just like more. I had more to say. I had more to share. And I don't know the words. I don't know how to do it. I don't know how to do it without exploding my head and exploding other people's heads. How do I do this? And so she said, I think I know someone who can help you, who has assisted me because he has walked the walk. And he does walk side by side.
The challenges was getting people to accept it, because I don't know why. I thought of Reiki immediately as a gift from God. And a lot of my sister is a nun, and she said, I do not want you to do that for me. Recently diagnosed with leukemia. And I was in the hospital, and I had all my Reiki buddies sending me Reiki. And it was so amazing that all the nurses came all the time. And one nurse said, I just love the vibe in this room. And I just, can I just come here and sit with you for a minute? And I truly believe that it was all the Reiki being sent to me and all the energy. And I told them all about, all my friends who do Reiki, and hopefully some of them are going to take Reiki classes from some of my friends who teach Reiki. And everyone started to tell me their life story and all their troubles. Everyone was being comforted by me and by just being in the room from all the wonderful energy being sent to me. So I try to spread energy and good vibes around wherever and whenever I can, because I've been the recipient of it. And I'm doing phenomenal with my illness now. And I believe it's because of all the prayers, of every kind that I've been receiving from everybody.
Divine feminine for me, and my journey with the divine feminine, is actually really potent. It's probably the most powerful part of my entire spiritual journey. In 2005, I weighed 250 pounds, and I was wearing my husband's polos, my ex-husband now, was wearing his polos, and very no makeup, just very swollen and yet contained. That would be how I would describe my energy. And I was not embracing my divine feminine. I wasn't sexually active. I wasn't connected at all with my cycle. I actually hadn't had a cycle for about a year and a half. So that entire part of my body was shut down. And what happened was this awakening of that energy occurred. It was a Kundalini awakening for sure. It was what you could call Shaktipat. But in that moment that my energy began to open, and there were a series of events that happened. Actually, there were multiple events that happened in a row over about a 12-month time period that activated that part of my body. This recognition of what had gone dormant. That was really what had happened. It was a recognition that my feminine energy had gone dormant, and now what do I do about this energy? And I wasn't writing, I wasn't doing any of the creative things. And I'm a highly creative person and always have been. And during that time period, I was 26 years old, I was completely disengaged and shut down from all of that. And what happened for me is in this awakening, it was really just bringing into consciousness where I was blocked, where I was dormant, where I was shut down. Things started to change inside of me. And one of the things that changed is I recognized I was in a toxic relationship. So it was time to leave my marriage. Another thing that changed was my spiritual work. All of a sudden, it was like all I could think about. Up until that point, I'm a multi-generational psychic medium, so it runs in my family. And it was a gift I'd always had, but it was sort of like an aside. All of a sudden, it was like all I could think about. I was reading every book I could find on anything spirituality, from different religions to meditation to understanding my gifts. And I decided to go to a clairvoyant training program that is led by the Berkeley Psychic Institute. They had a branch in Boulder, Colorado. So I went there. So when you talk about like a spark and a fire and the divine feminine, it was all related, very physically related and very spiritually related, where all of a sudden it was like, boom, I have to go do this work. I have to understand my gifts. But there was also like this opening inside my physical body too. The best part of my divine feminine work, and it's in my new book, is I bought a Chanel red lipstick. I went and bought a $40 lipstick, my Chanel red lipstick, and I kept it not just in my purse. It was in my purse. I would take it out. I'd put it on my desk when I was doing readings. It was always there to remind me of the divine feminine and of the fact that I was a woman. And that was, 15 years ago. And in that journey, what happened was, the more that I became comfortable with my divine feminine, first off, I recognized that there was trauma in my past, that it was time to deal with the trauma. And I think that that's what holds us back as women, is a lot of us have had some kind of trauma, whether it's sexual trauma or self-worth trauma or some kind of abuse or some kind of issue that occurred that shuts down our capacity to be in the flow, because the divine feminine is about letting go of control, and trauma makes us want to control everything. It puts us into the masculine field. And so through this journey, I was writing again. I started painting. Now I'm creating film. And I always loved to cook, but the creativity through cooking has just magnified. Obviously, I've lost 100 pounds since that time. So that's like 100 pounds of trauma that I've cleared away, and met my husband now, who's incredible. Healing those emotional blocks that open up all the creative flow that we have in our life and allow us to really be feminine. And I think that there's a lot of social stigma around being feminine. There's this real push in the feminist movement to be more masculine and to be in these positions of power. And while I support women being involved in those positions, I think there's also a great deal of power and strength in being a woman and being in your divine feminine energy and allowing grace to flow through us. I want to be engaged with the people that inspire me, that light my fire, that make me excited, that give me ideas, because that also can keep us going. And that's where community, especially community within women, is important, because so every other Monday I have a call called the Starseed Collective, and my dearest friends and colleagues hop on that call and we just talk about what's going on. Sometimes we just catch up. Sometimes we have ideas for shows or activations, or sometimes we have powerful downloads we're sharing with each other. And sometimes we don't show up at all because we're all just in our own space. So that's a powerful way for me to stay inspired and to stay engaged in the energy, is through my community of women and what they're doing and what they're experiencing.
what has been created from walking that walk and staying so true to it above all else are relationships. That's the truth. Relationships with people who can see light, whether they know it or not. And they recognize in themselves that they want to go there too. So all the work that I do, everything that I share, all the, online stuff, in-person stuff, everything that has been created has been born of open-hearted relationships with others that re-spark what I know in myself. So it's not me sitting here stoking my own fire. It's me offering the fire to anyone, making it visible. Here's a bonfire. Who would like to come to the bonfire? And then if whoever comes is like, oh yes, that fire, me too, me too. And everybody's fire grows to where if one of ours starts to peter out, maybe the wind is really strong, maybe it rained really hard, we can still see each other. And it is the relationship with others who go, Carrie, I see what you've got there. Will you please come share over here? The fire rages because it's natural. That's what's natural. That's our natural state of being, is illumination and sharing, excluding nothing. Fire doesn't discriminate who it shares with. Some people get close, others run away. That has nothing to do with me. And it's taken a long time to learn that.
There's so much that came from this divine spark inside myself that it's hard to even say, oh, this was the thing. But I can tell you, it really started with, I have all these creative ideas, but it was about bringing them forward into matter, bringing them to the planet, because as divine conduits, we receive from source, but it's the bringing it into matter, it's the bringing it to the planet and creating a legacy. That is what we can do as human beings that no one else can do. I mean, there are no other beings that can create the way that we can on the planet Earth. And I think that that is so potent. And so for me, it started with my book, Enlightenment Pie. I had been working on it for years. I'd been writing little chapters here and there about, my health and profound things. I have so many journals, it's unbelievable. And there was this moment where it was like, it's just time to do it. Don't worry about being perfect. Don't worry about editing. Don't worry about anything. You just need to do it and put it to the side. So I wrote Enlightenment Pie. I self-published. I just did it. I just got it out of me. And that was really the Kickstarter to everything that's followed since. And since, I've created over 1,000 hours of content on YouTube in the last 2 years. I am working on a documentary series called Awaken Grace. I'm actually writing my second book, but it's actually the third because I had a journal that came out with the first book. And I'm still creating, I created an app that is for my own work, for social community, spirituality, called Ajata Casa. So it's now, and it's really interesting, actually, the way that I look at it too is I created, it's I birthed these things, right? They came through me, the app was birthed, Buddhist Biohacker YouTube was birthed. These things were birthed. And now there's a distillation happening and a clarity. So there's this refinement that's occurring that's really beautiful, because now it's the child has been born, and now it's about raising the child and teaching the child and, this whole other experience. So it's kind of cool because I'm moving into this other phase. It's like phase one was this explosion of all of these ideas and community and teachings and all these things that I had kind of stored inside myself, just kind of blew up everywhere. And that has been incredible and beautiful and fun. But now it's like I'm looking at what has really been consistent through all of those ideas. And for me, it's really the health piece, my love of culinary, my love of Ayurveda and yoga, my own journey of healing my physical body and curing ailments in my own body and healing through spiritual practice. And so what's coming through now is, how do I take all of these beautiful things I've created and refine them and bring them into this clarity of truly biotransformation, being able to heal our body, minds, and spirits and release ourselves from the trauma, the genetic structures that have held us back. Like, none of those things need to weigh us down.
She took me through a really powerful process. And at the end of it, I went, oh my gosh, I want to do what you're doing, but I want to teach about this transformation. I want to teach powerful presence, because in all of my classes, this wasn't taught. And yet it was the single thing that allowed me to transform my life. So I ended my performance career with just like grace and ease. I really was okay to walk away from it. I'm like, this is what I'm meant to do. I felt like now I was connecting to purpose, and I got certified as a coach. And then I opened up the doors of my business in 2015, and here we are, and now I've helped hundreds of people across the globe to really access their powerful presence and really create the impact they desire and change the world through their work. And the other really amazing thing is that I did find my life partner. I found him 4.5 years later. We got married in 2018, and he is more than I could have ever imagined.
What I'm doing now is I run, so I'm a visionary artist, I'm a shamanic counselor, and I run a community and a business called Art Medicine. And this community is really, it's the meeting place between creativity, healing, and spirit. So I created the community that I was wishing and hoping for when I was going through everything that I just shared, because this is a community filled with people having spiritual openings, deeply studying healing and creativity, and actually not really knowing how to bring it all together. It's a group of multi-creative, highly spiritual people who have this calling to be this creative channel. And it's incredible. And so we have programs and support systems for artists that have this desire to create the art that heals and transforms, that desire to deepen their connection to spirit through their art. And just where I am creatively, which was just, it's always so mind-boggling when you're dedicated to following spirit, devoting your life to this relationship to spirit and listening to what those next steps are as a creative power, as a creative force. And so right now, which is super exciting. So my husband, he's a filmmaker. And what has come through really strongly is that I want to be a part of making movies, that I want to create this big art with him. And I want to see what's possible. I love those projects where at one point I thought I never could do that. I could never consider doing that. I did a multimedia show a few years back, and my husband, he spent a decade creating these really successful multimedia shows in San Francisco. And I would always be on the sidelines, and I would watch him thinking how amazing these are. There's no way I could do anything like this. I'm not talented enough. I'm not, all the like the knots, like I'm not enough. Right. And then when I got really honest with myself a few years ago, and I kind of had this mantra that I love making big art. I want to make big art. I want to travel the world and make big art. What is the next piece of big art? It was this multimedia show that we co-produced it. And after that show, I remember feeling like, oh my gosh, I did it. I did it. I did what I came here to do. I did it. I fulfilled it. And just what has been on my path creatively is, yeah, what is possible? What can I do? How can creative energy and power move through me? And so I'm a yes. I have no idea how it's going to happen, but I've had enough practice that when I'm a yes like this, it's go time, and spirit starts working in those mysterious ways. So, and I know I have a community, I have support that where I'm like, hey, I'm going to do this thing now. They're like, go for it. Awesome. I have a community now where I'm like, hey, spirit, I'm getting this message from spirit. And I have a community that's like, go for it. If you're hearing it from spirit, do it. That is like night and day from where I was, 25 years ago. So, yeah.
I was working with the Reiki. I used to do house calls, and every time I would go to someone's house, their dog or their cat or whoever would come and join. In fact, some dogs would just jump up on the table with the person. It was really weird how the animals just loved this. And I had a cat that lived with me that she would always come and help me do the Reiki on people. I think I said when I learned energy work in massage school, our teacher said when she started incorporating energy work into her regular massage work, the effectiveness of the regular massage went up tremendously and everything was so much better. And then when the animals came and helped me with my Reiki, the same thing happened, that everything was, I just felt like I was surrounded by angels, which I think I was.
There are a lot of ways to keep the fire burning. And for me, the number one way is being in nature. That is it for me. That's everything, because she has so much to offer us. And another way I really stay inspired is with my kids. I mean, if I color with the little girls, or my stepson really wants to cook right now, he's really into that. So I'm helping him with that. Like when I'm teaching and sharing or doing a craft with the kids, like that's something that's really inspiring as well. It makes me really excited and happy to do that too. And then travel too. We haven't been able to do that very much, but I do have some trips coming up.
Okay, so how do I keep the fire burning? This is such a fabulous question. And, it really began with the meditation practice. I feel like when I found that I realized I had found a life practice, that it had created such a transformation in me that I knew I would be doing this every day for the rest of my life, because I always feel better, always. And so it began with meditation, which I feel like in the grand scope of how do I keep the fire burning, it's through some kind of self-connection. It's through embodiment. So meditation is one of those pieces for me. I do it every day. But as my journey has continued, and I've actually been dealing with a health journey the past 2.5 years, healing from mold toxicity, it led me to Qigong. So Qigong and meditation together create what I feel like is a very healthy fire. The thing that I love so much about Qigong, I was so excited to share this with you, is my one Qigong teacher, Daisy. She has us do this beautiful thing where we bring the energy of the earth, and then we bring the energy of the sky, and we bring it into our heart so that we're bringing both of these together. But our palm is not like this flat. There's like a space. And so she says to imagine that there's a flame in there. And so at the end of every practice, we do this beautiful, it's called a Kuan Yin movement, which is us basically closing out with gratitude. And it begins with gratitude for ourselves. And then we will bring to mind, loved ones. And it's like we're seeing them surrounded in light. We're seeing them capable. We're seeing them well. And then it goes out to the world. Like this is also a form of meditation called Maitri in Buddhism. But then it comes back once it's gone out to the world, then it comes back, the flame comes back into my hands for my own flame. So it's like a reminder, okay, seeing myself well, seeing myself centered, because at the end of the day, if I'm not centered, I'm no good to anybody. I'm no good to the relationships in my life. I'm no good to my clients, no good to anybody. And so I love that it brings me back to this. And so there is every day I'm literally doing a practice that brings me back to a flame in my hands, which is the combination of bringing the earth and the sky together. And that I am in concert with that, that I am in accord with that, that I am working with that for my well-being, for the earth, for the universe's well-being. Also in Chinese medicine, the flame is a lot with the heart. So feeling that sense of fire in the heart is actually healthy and helpful. If someone is very cold, then it's like you need to bring in more fire to the heart. So it's just a beautiful way of bringing everything together and creating this flame within, and also seeing it in others. So that is how I keep the flame alive every day. It helps me so much.
What is self-care to me? Right. So for me, it's a lot about environment, living in beautiful places. Literally just physically putting myself in beautiful places. And then relax and let it happen. Often when I go to beautiful places, that's when all the old patterns dive in hard and heavy and say, oh, are you sure you need this? What's wrong with you? You shouldn't need this. Can you live without this? But again, that's my opportunity to turn and look right at it and go, thank you for showing me what no longer works for me. And it is profoundly different than what we were taught. It is like 180-degree change from the conditioning and patterning that we were taught. But my encouragement is explore it, because we are designed to feel light, to feel lightness, our own spark, our own divinity moving through and beyond us. That's the design. And it comes with this feeling of expansion. So have a relationship with expansion. So when it shows up, we're not afraid of it.
So if you are alive on the planet, I think you have a creative spark, and it's, you're being called forward to tend it. And that, I really believe that is the work that we're doing on the planet, is the work of tending our fire, whatever that looks like to you. And, the practice that I would suggest is really imagining or sensing an internal fire, like a fire. I always see it in my belly. Maybe you see it somewhere else in your body. Maybe it's in your heart. But I stay connected to it all of the time. I check in on it. And definitely there are various, like it's in various forms. Sometimes it's like a low flame, like kind of in that nurturing, passive, when I'm, needing to rest, kind of space. And sometimes when there's like a new inspiration coming in, it feels like this raging, right? Like a raging fire, so much energy, so much light, so much power moving through. And, I know, people like this where it's just like, woof, they are on fire all of the time. And I think everyone's in their own relationship to their rhythm of their fire. I think mine is like, it's like a candle flame, and then there's various stages of it growing. I think that, there's that spark, and there's that spark of inspiration, and then it's really our jobs to nurture it, to fan the flames of that spark.
Slow down and try to, get messages from God or whoever your word is for God, your higher self, the universe. Just slow down and get your ego out of the way. We're raised to think, oh, you're a little out there thinking all this stuff, but you'd be surprised at where it will take you if you just accept good thoughts and feelings that come to you and let them have a chance to grow.
So if you're feeling stuck, or you're feeling, I really loved what came through for me in meditation was about being stodgy and bloated. Feeling stodgy and bloated. What woman doesn't feel stodgy and bloated at some point, right? But that stodgy and bloated energy we feel is really our sacral chakras blocked up, right? It's really this, like, we're holding everything. And that's what women do too. We hold everything for everyone, right? For our kids, for our family, for our partners, we hold. And holding can be very powerful if it's done in this pure intention. But when we're just carrying everyone else's baggage, it starts to produce as this weight and this bloated energy and physical matter on the body. And so for me, my advice is, when you're feeling that, when you're feeling stuck, or you're just now recognizing that you're stuck, if you're hearing this and you're thinking, oh my God, that's totally where I'm at right now. There is a way to get unstuck. Like, there is a way, and the way in is really getting outside in nature. That is my number one thing, is to go outside in nature and to just be a woman sitting with a tree, or sitting by a creek side, or sitting in the grass, or putting your feet on a rock and just being with yourself. Because sometimes it's the first time in a long time we've done that. I've been in that place where it was the first time in a long time I really was sitting with myself, because of kids and husbands and things like that. And so sometimes just being with ourselves and becoming aware of who we are and what we are, and allowing ourselves to be that, right? Like, that is truly the gift that we can give ourselves, is that time and space in nature. And the other thing I would say is, go get your red lipstick. Even if you never put it on, but get that red lipstick and have it as a reminder that you are the divine feminine. Like, we carry something within us as women that no one else has, which is this divine feminine energy. And it's not that a male can't have that, by the way, if there's men who watch this, right? Like, they carry the divine feminine as well. But as women, we have the ability to flow effortlessly in life. And when our flow is blocked, that's when that swollen, bloated energy happens. It's kind of like thinking of like a dam blocking a little creek, right? If the branches go in. And so it's like moving those branches away and allowing yourself to be in flow, and allowing yourself to be yourself, and not have those tapes playing that are telling you, oh, I'm not creative, or I can't do this, or I can't paint, or I can't write, or I can't, whatever it is you think you can't do, because it's just a tape playing in your head. It's not truth with a capital T. Truth is that you are God's source. You are the divine flowing effortlessly in life. And if you're experiencing effort, if it's taking effort to do things, then you're not in flow. And stopping and sitting with yourself often it's very easy to identify where you're out of flow.
Just like, again, the woman nurturing the baby and and having the baby, in the birth itself, there are rhythms too, right? There's resting. A woman who's birthing actually rests more than she's laboring, that was always so shocking to me. Sometimes women pushing their babies out would fall asleep in between pushes. And so I kind of offer the same thing to you and your own creative practice, is like don't be afraid of the resting while you're bringing something out, or if the flame is low, or you're just seeing that it's like kind of a slow growing process, you're incubating, you're growing something. And also to like welcome in that there are those times where the fire is really big and you have a lot of energy, and you feel that creative spark. Create. It doesn't matter what it looks like, just get it out, let it flow. You can like draw or write, you can do a scribble painting, you can just like scribble, just like move, dance, just like let it generate through you, right? Otherwise, we can, like, if we try to hold that fire in, it can harm us. We can get depressed, like that story I was sharing about like trying to be normal, like it starts to kind of turn on ourselves, right? So let it out, do whatever you need to do, focus on process, know that it's spirit moving through you, and just say yes.
Oh my goodness. If you are hearing this and you're like, I don't feel it, I don't feel the spark, I think just like allow that. If you are feeling self-conscious, maybe because there isn't a spark or any of that, that's okay, because it might be that the quiet is helping you. It might be that this part of your journey is about just feeling the quiet. The wisdom comes out of that place. But I think we first, especially in the incredibly busy world we first have to learn, what does it mean to be in my body? And there's a lot of information in the body. There's a lot of history in the body, so being in our bodies can be challenging. So, my biggest invitation is to have some kind of daily embodiment practice, because at the end of the day, your spark is inside. It's not outside. The fire burns within.
Life happens in relationship. And so many of us who are super sensitive and maybe have known it our whole life, or are just rediscovering how sensitive we are. When you start to reclaim your sensitivity, you cannot selectively feel the things you want to feel and then not feel the things you don't want to feel. A lot of people on the journey start to build controls and walls and protections that want to say yes to the positive and no to the negative. And what I would offer is to explore the part of yourself that is unharmable, to explore that your divinity is unharmable. And when I have a relationship with that part of myself, it doesn't mean I'm going to go walk off a cliff and expect not to splat on the ground. That's going a bit far. But how does it feel to connect with the true part of myself that nobody's words can harm? How does it feel to connect with that true part of myself that death does not stop? Just opening the possibility of a direct relationship with that part of yourself hopefully relaxes the doors open to all the relationships that can spark you. Let relationships happen. Discover, walk through the discomfort of asking for help. Walk through the discomfort of saying no when the answer is no. And walk through it knowing that the reason I say no is because my commitment, my highest commitment, is to my own heart. Say yes to relationships. Say yes to receiving the support that that sees you for who you are, doesn't try to change you, but sits right next to you knowing what direction you're going. Say yes to learning how it feels to be free of conflict within yourself, especially once that spark is really, really alive and we know we want to share it with humanity. One of the best ways to honor that spark is to recognize that a healthy body, a rested body, a body that lives in an environment that's complementary, all of that is part of fanning your own flame. The advice is have a relationship with feeling good. Have a relationship with feeling free. And just know, when I am choosing that relationship from the purity of my heart, all the difficulties that pop up, it's just the universe saying, are you sure? Because you used to really dig this. And you could still do it if you want to. And it's then, if I have a job on the planet, my job is seeing that for what it is and saying, oh, thank you for reminding me of what no longer works for me. Thank you, but no thank you. I'm going this way.